Pump it up, pump it up.
Trae.
Come on, come on.
With Trae.
Pump it up, pump it up.
It's the day with Trae.
This is the day to gain inspiration, to make a positive change in the nation. We're inviting you to partake in conversation, to raise your vibration. It's the day that we will all celebrate all of our peace that make the thing elevate. Watch the negative fade away, cause it's the day with Trae.
Grand Rising, everyone. Welcome to the Day with Trae. I'm your host, Trae Holiday. I get to welcome you to a magnificent Monday. Really excited for my guest who's in the building. We got Brian J. Carter here, Executive Director of For Culture. We're going to be learning all about what they do and how they ensure that arts and culture stay thriving in our community. But first, I get to talk to y'all because you know it's the top of the show. This is the best time right now for y'all to go ahead and help us grow by sharing this show with others who you feel could benefit from our daily dose of dopeness we give you on the Day with Trae. And if you can't watch us, don't worry, we got you covered. You can always listen to us anywhere you find your favorite podcast. Just search Converge Media Network in the Day with Trae. You'll find us there. So, I want to talk to y'all about relationships before I get into it with Brian J. Carter after the break. Relationships are so important and so key. I talk a lot about being in community and relationships. And over the weekend, one of the things I got to experience was gratitude in multiple ways, not just in the Breathing Black Love series, which focused on gratitude. Shout out to Haru Chayazamin and Wow Gallery for bringing that out to community, but also because of friends who are grateful for the ways that I've contributed to their life, and the gratitude abounds. I talk about being filled with gratitude often, and being able to deepen my understanding of gratitude has been such a pleasure, y'all, because I'm understanding it in ways that I may not have thought of before. So I want to encourage y'all, when I experience goodness, I want to share it with you, but I want to encourage you to be thinking about the ways that you can be grateful for everything you have in your life. I know right now we are dealing with a lot of different kind of upheaval, right? Like when it comes to the political atmosphere all across this country, people trying to figure out how they're going to feed their families with this cut to SNAP benefits. Everyone is experiencing some level of, discomfort, so to speak. And so, or a lot of people, I will say, are experiencing this discomfort. I'm just encouraging you to find the ways to be grateful, eternally grateful, not only for amazing relationships in your life, but also for those that you get to serve, for those that you pour into. Be grateful that you are there to do that. Oftentimes we think about gratitude as what we receive, right? We're so grateful for what someone does for us. But I want you to flip the script and be grateful for what you do for others. Be grateful that you are in the position to do so. It is a beautiful thing to be able to deepen your understanding and your commitment to being grateful every single day, because it really does give you a sense of energy that allows you to continue doing what you do. And so shout out to everyone out there who is pouring into others. I'm grateful that you are doing it. The world is better because you are, and I'm encouraging you to find your deeper level of gratitude on this Monday morning. Well, after this short break, y'all, up next, we got Brian J. Carter in the building. We're going to be talking all things for culture. You don't want to miss this, I promise you. Stay tuned. You're watching The Day with Trae.
Here on Back to Vesa, it's always been important to me that we uplift stories from across the region, and that no matter where you live in the nation, you never have to miss a moment of the show as we continue to highlight the beauty, excellence, and resilience of our communities across the Pacific Northwest. Why? Because representation matters. So no matter where you live, be it the Central District or Centralia, Portland or Pullman, or anywhere across the country, I encourage you to join me on this Back to Vesa journey by downloading the free Fox Local app on your phone or smart TV as we continue to elevate the very best in our communities.
Hello, welcome to Elite Insights with Carlos Imani. We're looking to offer an in-depth look at event production industry through the lens of client experiences and joint successes. The podcast will emphasize guest interviews, focusing on client discussing their fields and reflecting on their collaboration with Elite Collective. Again, you're with Elite Insights. Carlos Imani here. See you guys in a few.
Black caregivers, entrepreneurs, and elders, this one's for you. Queen Care is offering complimentary self-care services to those who give so much to their communities. Take a moment to restore, recharge, and be cared for with free wellness treatments at the Spa House by Queen Care. Spots are limited, so don't wait. Go to queencareproducts.com now to sign up or scan the QR code on your screen because you deserve the same care you give to others.
Welcome back, y'all, to the Day with Trae. I'm your host, Trae Holiday. Joining me right now, we got Brian J. Carter in the building. Hi.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. You know, it's exciting because I've experienced sport culture in so many different ways, but I'm so grateful you're here so we can really talk about it. Before we get into the work of the organization, tell us a bit more about you. What got you to become the executive director?
Oh,
What's that background story, Brian?
that's a great question. I give a lot of credit to my parents. I was raised by a father who said, if there are things missing in school, right, things about our culture, people who look like us, he took me to the library and he taught me how to use the library as a resource. I was also raised by a mother who said, you keep things, right, so that you could remember them, and they're these touchstones. And you put those two things together, and it was kind of inevitable that I ended up working in museums for 15 years. So working at the Northwest African American Museum, worked at the Oregon Historical Society, and just like really was interested in where dollars went. And so I ended up in the funding side. But yeah, so much of my stuff from Yakima, originally the Palm Springs of Washington. Wow. So that's where I started out. And yeah, I give all the credit to my folks for that kind of environment of like, it was curiosity, but also like get off your ass and go figure out the thing that's missing and be part of the solution as opposed to simply pointing out the problem.
Oh my God. You know, now you're talking my language. I talk about being a part of the solution here on the Day with Trae all the time. I think there's something so intricately connected to, you know, our purpose when we're inspired by the stories of others, and it helps us find our way sometimes. So I love that. But, you know, I actually have a sweatshirt that's from Yakima that says Palm Springs of Washington. So I don't know how it got that name, but I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
It was done ironically, but we embraced it if you're from Yakima. So
absolutely.
Proud to be from there.
Well, you know, this is great because Sport Culture has been ensuring that a lot of arts and culture institutions stay sustainable in our community. Tell us a bit more about some of the work y'all do.
Sure. So For Culture is a granting agency, and our revenue sources are from tax dollars. So thank you to everybody who's listening, and your tax support goes to fund the wonderful work we do, which is to make sure that grants and commission projects and funding go out to cultural organizations throughout King County and also individual artists. Cultural producers, cultural workers, historians, heritage professionals. So we're in the business of supporting the ecosystem of arts, culture, and science throughout King County.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting too because I didn't realize the breadth oftentimes of what y'all support.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of different things. Can you give us, you know, some things off the top that maybe folks don't understand are supported by your work?
Sure. I think one of those things is historic preservation. So the built environment, the landscapes, those are things that carry so much of our history. They carry innovation, stories of innovation, of creativity, and that is something that's unique to For Culture. There are other funding agencies throughout the United States, but rarely do they fund historic preservation. So that's one of the things that we fund that people are surprised by. Also, whenever we talk about arts, right? We intentionally named ourselves For Culture because we look at the broad kind of like swath of different cultural producers and forms and disciplines. So heritage is one. I came up in history museums, and we fund, there's probably a heritage society, a small history museum in every one of the 39 cities throughout King County. So that's something that we support. So those are a few things that are surprising to folks because typically when you say arts, they think, yo, it's the museum, it's the gallery, it's the symphony, it's the opera. But yeah, there are probably 900 organizations throughout King County that we're lucky enough to be in partnership with as a funder.
You know, well, I used to talk to funders oftentimes about moving from a transactional mindset to a relational one. And I want to talk because y'all have kind of some unique ways that y'all do your application process. You have ways that you've been intentional about, lowering these barriers or eliminating barriers for people to access these funds. Tell us about some of the ways that y'all approach your granting arm and how you stay in relationship with those grantees.
Sure. I think it's an ethos of the organization that I inherited. So I always want to give credit to those who came before me. Yeah. Those who were there before, so this is Jim Kelly, this is Deb Twersky, that were some of those early folks when we formed as a PDA in 2001. And what they believed is that you should be able to pick up the phone and get a hold of somebody at For Culture, that if a special accommodation needs to be made, that we do our best to try and do that. And more than anything else, that we be human. And I think one of the ways that we've been able to keep that ethos and really build on it is that all of us who work there have been in the trenches of the cultural field, like museums, theater. So there's not one phone that you can pick up and call and somebody hasn't probably sat in a similar chair that you sat through, has tried to reach out to a funder and, not ever got a response. So I think we bring that experience to it. And then we just build that culture where how can we help? How can we be in partnership? So part of it's like a cultural philosophy, and the other part is that we hold each other accountable. So folks will always show up at the door. Hey, I'm trying to get a hold of this person, or I have a question about this, and somebody will jump in and hold that hand that needs to be handed. And I don't mean that in a pejorative way. It's good. We all need support. So hopefully I carry that legacy of caring about that relationship building. And that's not to say it's always perfect or it's easy. 900 organizations, it's a little easier when you have a portfolio, right, of you got 10 folks per year that you fund or even 100. It's enormous, the number of folks that we try and support and be in relationship with. But so much of that is your attitude. And then also we try and show up. Like, people always talk about being community. It's like it's your weekends, it's your nights, and you can't always say yes to the invitation, but try and say yes as much as possible. And with the number of staff that we have, I hope we're out in community seeing the wonderful work that we support, because that's the only way you actually get to know people is one-on-one, not organization to organization.
Oh my gosh, I agree with this so much. I mean, so much so that, I've taken that same model into my work. And, I really appreciate organizations who hold true to being in community. I think it's so vital. And oftentimes, where there's a separation for some odd reason between community and our roles and us having to be at the cubicle or whatever else, right? Like, there's something that is so special about work that is being done in relationship by being in community. And so I really appreciate that approach. But I agree too that you need people who have the experience, right? And really making sure that the culture stays within For Culture by having the right people involved. How has it been to work with those who, are reporting to you and those who are a part of the amazing work that y'all are doing? How has it been to work with those individuals?
I think it's this wonderful collection of brilliance and empathy, and more than anything else, caring. Like, I feel very lucky for the people that I get to work with, and that was proven especially during the pandemic. I think when you're a leader at an organization, there are certain rights that you have. There are also certain responsibilities. So I feel fortunate. You were talking about gratitude. Like, I'm grateful for the people that I get to work with, and the reason is because there's not one. I mean, we all been there. Like, you're trying to get the grant application in at the last minute. You're just trying to get the narrative and how do you fit the budget in and just give us the money, right? And the people at For Culture who work understand that. So you were talking earlier about how we try and make our grant application, our review, as simple as possible. That's a belief that we all hold each other accountable to. So I love the folks that I work with because they're always trying to remove barriers or obstacles. Not always 100% successful, but having that mindset, I think, is where we try and keep ourselves.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of granting organizations that can learn a thing or two from what y'all do. But also, I think you have to stay vigilant about it too. And so there's a level of intentionality you have to have that stays there no matter what. And I think from what I've experienced being on the side of like, let me go ahead and put this application in, right? I had people who would be like, oh my gosh, For Culture has this grant money. You should look into this, especially when I was on the community organizing side. And it was a beautiful thing to have that kind of relationship where folks would call and say, hey, let me send you this link. Like,
Right.
you know, you need to tap into this. And not as if I always got it, right? But it was
Yeah.
just this thought of, we see what you're doing. It actually, you should be a part of this, right?
Right.
I love that because there's something really special. And it wasn't like staff from For Culture were doing that. It was like community. And it's a beautiful thing because I want to talk to you a bit about this nonprofit industrial complex. I think there's a lot of, you know, competition that happens when it comes to granting and to funding. How do y'all kind of deal with that? Because I think there's a lot of great institutions that are applying for the same limited amount of funds.
Right.
And we see this over and over again where it can cause a lot of dissension in community. How do y'all try to manage that?
Oh, that's a great question. I think recognize that there's been a real proliferation of cultural nonprofits, especially over the past 25 years. And it's for good reason. There were lots of stories and narratives and content and approaches from particular communities that were historically underinvested in and underrepresented. And so a lot of us, right, we say, hey, we're going to start our own thing. We want our voice at the table, which is great. The number of organizations that rise, every ecosystem has a carrying capacity. There are only so many resources that exist. So I think at For Culture, it's acknowledging that it's a growing, I mean, it's growing at an incredible rate. I think especially during the pandemic, you saw a lot of folks with time on their hands who say, hey, you know, I've been wanting to do this for years and years. I'm going to start it now. And so you saw a rise even more of organizations. I think we had 150 new organizations last year that applied for funding to us that hadn't come before. So you acknowledge it. And also, you're just honest, right? We can't stretch a dollar farther than it will go. So I think setting expectations that here's the volume of that kind of ecosystem of support that we're trying to help, and you know, don't get your hopes up that the grant's going to be $8 million, right? Because there are 900 folks, and we're trying to have equitable outcomes in our grant processes. But yeah, I think it's acknowledgement. I think it's being honest and open in communication. And then I think the part that's, at least to me, the most interesting about this, is called the cultural nonprofit industrial complex, is the fact that I think there need to be changes introduced in the way in which we're seeing how our institutions both are born, but also how they evolve. So I'm really interested in collaborations and partnerships that might lead to joint operating agreements, that might lead to mergers, that might lead to shared spaces, because the pace that we're going and growth is not sustainable. And I think being honest and saying that we need to be looking for those efficiencies. It makes sense.
I agree with you 100%. And you know, I also recognize, like what you just said, the need is so vast.
Right.
And people are stepping up to the plate to fill voids that they are experiencing in their communities or within their own culture. They're like, hey, this thing needs to exist.
Yep.
I can't wait for somebody else to do it. I have to do it myself. And so kudos to those who step up to the plate in that regard. But I really appreciate your response in terms of looking at new models. How do we do this in a more shared capacity?
Right.
What kind of things can we do to, you know, connect in a way that doesn't pit people and institutions against one another. Lastly, I just want to ask about, you know, your vision for the future of For Culture. It sounds like, you know, a part of that may be like supporting some of those new emerging ways of doing business. But what are some of the things you're really looking forward to in the coming years, months, weeks?
Well, it's an exciting moment. There's a tax levy that really increased the amount of revenue that For Culture is able to distribute to the field through its grants. And so we have an increased positionality. We have a different posture. And I always, and this goes back to my parents, like there are rights that you have with that power and that positionality, and there are also responsibilities. So one of the things that I'm interested in continuing is when I showed up at For Culture, I said, we got to review and revise our mission. So our mission now focuses on racial equity explicitly in the first few words. And that was because I was so tired of going to seminars and conferences and workshops and hearing folks say there aren't enough philanthropic dollars that go to communities of color, those who have not historically got it. And I said, how can you fix that? You got to be very explicit about it. So for me, the through thread of my time at For Culture is that particular focus in finding ways through our grant methodology, through our practices, through our the culture of the organization, that we keep having outcomes that are equitable equitable. So I'm talking about like a transference of dollars, a redistribution of wealth, and I'm unapologetic about that. So that's something that I will continue doing. I'm also really interested in the ways in which arts and culture intersect with other community priorities. So, I mean, we're dealing with one of the things I'm really interested in, and I don't know if this is specifically a vision for culture, but climate change. When we talk about folks that are facing housing challenges, food scarcity. There are these amazing and necessary and essential intersection points between arts and culture and those community priorities. And I see a rising number of cultural nonprofits, right, that have been born out of that space, that don't see a separation between what's going on in the neighborhood and what's going on at the museum or the theater. And I think we're going to see even more of that because it articulates the value and it proves the value of arts and culture because it's essential to a healthy community. So just some of my priorities, and also taking care of these great people that I work with. There's a tremendous responsibility, and I hope I live up to that. So there is a change to the workforce, right? There's so many folks from the baby boomer generation that have gone away, and now you see millennials coming in, and there are different ways in which those folks approach work. So I take that responsibility of listening about how do you see the workday? How do you see your role? What does rest look for you? What does self-care look like for you? And that's very different for people like me that are dinosaur Gen Xers who came up, right? You're gonna work 40 hours a week, 7 days a week, no matter what. So that's something that I really wanna focus on as well, because we have the ability to model what a more healthy workplace looks like. And I think that leads to retention, but also those people, when you pick up the phone to call them, they're in a better mood, they're healthier, they're ready to serve, and that's what I think is really critical. It doesn't get talked about a lot, right? Within nonprofits, what is the health of the workforce? Because that's where program delivery happens, or that's where program delivery suffers.
Yeah, I mean, 100%, Brian. This has been so insightful for me because, you know, leaders like you are hard to come by, and I mean that because you have to be very, you know, mindful of those who you're working with and alongside, but also those you're serving. And those two things have very different, you know, perspectives that you have to consider. So I really appreciate you sharing today. Of course, if folks are trying to tap in, learn more, you know, become a grantee or find ways to support your work, look right there, let them know how they do so.
Sure, it's forculture.org is the website, and hopefully it's really easy to use. And there's also contact information. So I say pick up the phone, give us a call, or swing through. We're right in Pioneer Square. And like I always say, I'm not hard to find.
Wow, Brian, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a pure pleasure to talk more about this. I'm sure we could have gone on for a long time. But thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, wow, y'all. What an amazing way to start the week off. We got some great information and some great energy right here in the studio. Of course, I'll wrap it all up right after this short break. Stay tuned. You're watching The Day with Trae.
Well, on Fox Face Off, we tell the raw, unadulterated truth.
Fox Soul Face Off
We are given the platform here with no fear.
always comes out swinging.
We should be saying, hey, stop shooting and killing people.
Nothing held back.
They wanted black hip-hop moguls and artists to continue the feud.
No punches pulled.
And shut the hell up. You interrupt me all the time.
Tune into the show where opinions collide. Fox Soul Face Off. New episodes weeknights at 9 or stream anytime on Fox Soul.
Pacific Northwest Ballet is thrilled to be back on stage with your favorite holiday tradition, the Nutcracker. Brighten your holidays with this timeless tale performed by PNB's incredible company of dancers to the live magic of the PNB Orchestra playing Tchaikovsky's classic score. Treat your loved ones to the Nutcracker at Seattle Center's McCaw Hall. For tickets, visit pnb.org.
Wow, welcome back everyone to the Day with Trae. I'm your host, Trae Holiday. Huge shout out to my guest today, Brian J. Carter, bringing down the house with his vision for Four Culture, and also to give us some insight into how they stay rooted as a cultural institution, celebrating and uplifting the work of other institutions within our communities. 900 grantees is a lot to manage, and clearly he talked about how their workforce is from those communities, right? Folks who have lived it, which really brings a sense of understanding and care and empathy in their work. And it was beautiful to hear his vision for how they move forward in thinking about, the ways that these intersectionalities play out in institutions and how their work can continue to help sustain that. It was beautiful, but also I loved this part of, how really arts and cultural institutions have the ability to continuously tell us the signs of the times, which we are seeing those things influence more into arts and culture. And I'm really grateful to hear that, he is mindful of that, and those he worked with are also mindful of that. But, it was just inspiring for me when we find the right position for ourselves, no matter what we do, if it's a business, if it's within an institution, finding that right position for you is something all of us can be inspired by. So I hope all of y'all were just as inspired as I was. It was truly a pleasure to talk with him. And he said it, y'all. We can all find ways to be a part of the solution. Never forget it. Of course, I'll be back with you tomorrow. And until then, at 11 a.m., y'all, peace. Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.